Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's 9:35. We have a quorum, so we're going to begin our meeting. It's an exciting day, time for ROPS. It's the most special time of the year. I think it's a song by somebody important. So let's start. Can we lead us with the pledge, please?
Sure. Please stand, face the flag,
All right.
hand over heart, and ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
We already changed the agenda, so let's go to roll call, please.
Board Member Dean. Board Member Driscoll.
Here.
Board Member Mishler.
Here.
Board Member Powers.
Here.
Board Member Simons.
Present.
Chair Al Fattal.
So we have a quorum. So let's move on to the minutes. Any comments or motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. As you could tell, I was not prepared.
It's push button too.
Yeah, you're right. Agenda review. Anyone have any changes to the agenda they want to discuss or offer? Motion? Second? Let's move forward. Do I get a motion? We don't need a motion? Oh, well, thanks. No changes. Move forward. Board comments. Anyone have board comments? Okay. Public comments. Do we have any cards or anyone to speak? Jessica. Great. Let's move forward.
I just have one comment.
Please.
I'd like to thank Bob, our counsel. I know that he's retiring soon, and it's been a pleasure knowing you, and I'm very appreciative of all the guidance and assistance you've provided here for this group, and we've worked in other former RDAs, and you're much appreciated. You will be missed greatly, but congratulations.
Thank you, Bob.
I second that.
I third that.
Motion approved. Tomorrow your last day, Robert?
Last work day, Friday's a
All
day
right.
off the office day.
Good for you. Congratulations. So let's move on to the regular agenda. The first item is Camarillo. Is Camarillo present to present?
Good morning, members of the board. Brian Ritchie, Accounting Manager with the City of Camarillo. So on our last meeting, we presented our administrative budget, which is $65,500, and that was approved by you at this time. And so now we're back with the total, which includes our debt service for 2021, as well as $15,500 in bond administrative fees. So it's fairly straightforward. We're looking at $4.8 million for the debt service, as well as, like I said, the $15,500 for the bond admin fees. If you have any questions regarding the schedule, I'd be happy to go through those.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Motion?
I'll second.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And item agenda number 9 is the City of Fillmore.
Good morning, board members and others present. My name is Galen Bryan, Finance Director for City of Fillmore. I'm here to present the Fillmore Successor Agency recognized obligation payment schedule for the period July 1 through June 30th, 2021. I have three things to say about our budget. It's $3.9 million. The three things I have to say, it includes $3.6 million in debt service, $223,000 in administrative costs, which was approved by the board in December, this board in December, and $40,000 in fees, attorney fees, consulting fees associated with selling our properties, and auditor fees. And I'm available to answer questions.
No questions?
Nope.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
And City of Moore Park, item number 10.
Good morning, members of the board. Kambiz Borhani for City of Moore Park. I have a quick slide that I'd like to go over if possible. Thank you. After our last meeting, when we presented the administrative costs, if you recall, I had allocated a portion to commissions and closing costs for the property that we were trying to dispose. So I went ahead and removed that and included two other consultant fees that we have our council has awarded a contract for a broadband study. So we have included that, and we are looking to make some site improvements on one of the properties that we do own, and added some additional hours for in the above. I think it was a total of 8 hours in the Oversight Board meeting section. So altogether, we have reduced it to $195,000, and in addition to that, we have some bonds that are listed on the ROPS, and that's pretty much it. And a couple of consultants that do annual disclosures for us, and arbitrage services. That's basically it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for following up on that from our last meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thanks.
Yes, ditto.
And I believe your city's reporting back to this board in April
Yes.
on the property.
On the property, yes.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I motion. Approve.
I'll make a motion to adopt the City of Moore Park budget.
And I'll second it. So we agendized 10 and 11, I see, correct? So 10 was for the, oh, I see. Okay. So the last was for the admin budget. This is for the ROPS.
Correct.
Do you have anything to report on the ROPS to us, or?
No, it was just the two bonds that I mentioned.
Yes.
Consultants, that's it.
Can I get a motion?
Make motion to approve?
I'll second.
Item 12, City of Oxnard.
Good morning, members of the board. Adam Smith, City of Oxnard. Before you, we have the City of Oxnard's 2021 ROPS. Just a couple items of note. Our admin allowance was reduced from 250,000 down to 199 for next fiscal year. And our total enforceable obligations stand at 9.5 million, down from 9.7 from the prior year. With that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Questions, anyone? I have a few questions about the property transfers that were in part of this. And I was going through them, and there's quite a bit. Can you help us understand how that process came to this board today? I mean, it's been 6-7 years. Were those properties always scheduled to be transferred at this point in time?
Are you talking about item 13?
I'm sorry?
Are you talking about item 13?
Oh, am I ahead of the game? Yeah. I sure am. That'll be my question when we get there.
Got it.
Can you get a motion?
I'll make a motion for Oxnard, agenda item 12, ROP schedule and approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. With that, I'll give it to
You're switching on you.
Good morning, board members. I'm Todd Mooney. I'm with King, Ballmer, Berkman. We're a special counsel to the city of Oxnard. This is item 13, the transfer of assets. I'm sure almost all the questions you'll have today will be on this item. So this process, with the dissolution process, we went through the HAT process, the housing asset transfer process, where we identified housing assets and then got DOF approval and transfers those to the city as the housing successor. Then we went through the LRPMP process and made a list of all our real properties, and that was approved by the DOF, and we've been transferring those to the, 38 of the 51 properties went to the city as governmental purpose assets, and then the others are non-governmental purpose, and we've got 7 of those left to dispose of. And so we've been going, like you said, for a number of years, going through this process, getting rid of these properties. And then we were talking to people in the city's finance department, and they said, okay, you sold this property, we'll take it off the city's list of assets, so here's all your remaining assets. And so we looked at this list, and the list is one of the items in the agenda packet. And it's this list of dozens of additional assets that are shown on the finance department's books as being owned by the successor agency. And we said, what in the world is this? What are these items? And if you look at the list itself, other than this 20-year-old van that the successor agency staff uses for official business, we don't even know what these are. And but they are things that are on the books of the finance department as being owned by the successor agency. And we told them, we don't even know what these are. These aren't, other than the van, these aren't physical things that we even own. Please take them off. They don't belong on our books. And they said, well, silly person, you don't know how the finance department works. We can't just take them off the books. There is a process that needs to be followed. We need to know their value. We need to know with certainty what they are before we can transfer them to go onto someone else's books. And so that's what we're asking today, is to start to initiate that process to dispose of these assets. Now, the main interest you may have is that the successor agency cannot completely dissolve until it does a number of things, which are wrap up all litigation, pay off all its debts, and dispose of all its assets. Now, it won't be until 2038 that we actually pay off all our debts, according to the ROPS. But we want to initiate now the process to dispose of these assets, because for some of these, it may take some time to identify what they are and what they're worth, and to actually get them transferred. And so they're either going to fit in under a housing asset or a governmental purpose asset. So if they're a housing asset, they'll be transferred to the city in its role as the housing successor. If they're governmental purpose, they'll be transferred to the city for governmental purpose assets. And so that's the process we'd like to initiate. If you look at the staff report and the resolution, what we're asking for is authorization from you and then from the DOF to start this process. But even if you were to approve it, right away, nothing's going to get transferred right away because the finance department has to identify, like I said, the value and exactly what they are before they can be transferred. And we figured that it wouldn't happen all at once. It would probably happen an item at a time. Like, let's figure out what facade improvement program valuation is, and then we'd attack that one. The van will be easy. That's just changing the title. But for some of these, just figuring out what they are is going to take some time. We don't want to delay the final dissolution of the successor agency by putting this off until the very last minute. We want to get started now. And
Okay, so as you mentioned, I don't see any physical assets here. These are programs, most of these things. Is that correct?
right, they're
That were on the books?
book value, but they're not something other than the van. They're not something physical that we even know what they are.
Well, so lighting, fencing, as an example, I think it's one of the items here, facade improvements. So these were all on the successor agency books, you're telling me?
Right.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's important, since we're trying to get everything cleaned up, is that you get your stuff cleaned up as well. I'm surprised there's this many items that are on the books. I guess that's a question we should be asking of the other agencies as well as we go through it here. I'm just baffled that non-physical assets are on the books, but if that's what it is and it needs to be cleaned up, I don't have an issue with that. I think it's a step in the right direction.
Well, I'm just trying to understand the history behind this. We go back in history. You're saying the successor funds were spent on these items. So it wasn't like they were dropped in here by mistake. They were actually, funds were spent on these items from the successor agency in the past?
We don't know. Someone present us with a list and say, here's some things that you own. And we had no idea we owned them. We're trying to figure it out.
Is part of it you're trying to figure out, so someone said, you own this, are you trying to figure out if that is a true statement or to what extent? I mean, it's kind of surprising, and it's a long list with a fairly large dollar amount. And I'm trying to figure out when I'm reading the cover memo, it says that it was discovered on records maintained by the city's finance department. The successor agency is shown as the owner of 49 additional assets. And so was that maybe just, it's still really not clear how a discovery like this was. I'm still trying to figure this out.
Well,
and is it really the successor agency who owns it, or is this what is believed to be owned, or what's happening in a validation process?
The personnel at the city who've been carrying out the dissolution process are the staff of the Economic Development Department, and I've been helping them out with that. So through identifying housing assets for the housing asset transfer process for real property, for the LRPMP, we've got that. We know what properties there are, what housing assets there are, and we've been successful in disposing of those assets. These things, as far as book values of whatever, were nothing that housing staff or my office ever dealt with, ever even knew existed until last year. We didn't know that the finance department maintains book values of fencing projects conducted years or decades ago. We don't even know what that is. We're not going to go out and sell a fence. It's not a property that we even had in our inventory. It's something that was on their books as us owning. We're not using it. We don't even know what it is. It's not anything that is of value or of use to the Economic Development Department. And so we're trying to fulfilled the dissolution process by having it taken off our books and put onto the city's books over time, so it doesn't hold up the final dissolution.
Well, if I could ask a question, wouldn't the more prudent process be to verify if it exists, if it was done, if it's been fully depreciated, and just write it off as a finalized project, as opposed to transferring it to the city? Wouldn't you do that first and really flush this out? And that's what we do at our office too. I get many times where we have fixed assets going back from 1982 or something, and you go and verify whether the work was done. If not, it's not something that continues to be even acknowledged as an item in your books, because it's already been experienced in terms of cost and depreciation. Maybe you can flesh that out before you bring in this large list and see which ones are actually viable, or not viable, but are legitimate in terms of, for example, the downtown theater project, $2 million of work. And there must be some documentation that, there's some improvement there, building improvement, I assume. I see other things, a basketball court, Southwind basketball court. Okay, you can verify that exists or not. Some things you can't, some things you can, but this seems like the list you're just transferring over without doing that type of verification.
We would like to just transfer it over, but the finance department won't let us. Like they said, for each of these items, they'll need to go through that process. And there's two ways we could approach it. One is to get your permission now and then work on that identification, all that, or identify all these 49 things and come back in 5 years and get your permission. I mean, it's...
If I may, let me ask our legal counsel, I mean, what's your, from the state law process, do you know anything about that will help us on what direction we should be going on?
The city has an obligation to identify all the assets of the former RDA and to submit a plan to dispose of them. I don't know at what point they are in that overall plan, but obviously they have to take care of these one way or other. The way I read what they're proposing is to give authority up front to take care of them. The issue would be whether they should report back to you about their recommended actions for each of the 49 items before they take that action. I mean, you either have to delegate that with some kind of standard, or they'll have to report back to you before they take each action for your approval at that time.
Can I make a comment? The city of Oxnard is the one that's coming back in a few months regarding their fixed assets and their disposition program. And you mentioned it might take you 5 years to go through this stuff. Is that?
Well, because it's not up to us. It's up to the finance department and what they require and all that. And
You mean Department of Finance?
no, the city's finance
Okay, well,
department
that's an internal
to identify
city.
what they need internally. And
Okay, well, that's,
I mean, there may be records that don't exist or that no longer exist, and I don't know if we'll ever.
Well, let's go back to the city attorney, to our advisor. So can we push them to a quicker response in evaluating these assets? Do we have that authority?
What you have an authority to do is either delegate a standard for them to dispose of the assets and report back to you, or to simply come back to you and say, these are the actions we plan for X, Y, and Z reasons, and then you approve those actions. But I don't think you can give them a carte blanche to just take them off the books.
But we can ask them to come back in 6 months with the updated list.
Or on any kind of regular basis when it makes sense. I mean, they shouldn't be required to come back when they have no information.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
the one thing I saw, I think, in your board letters, you don't expect your assets to be paid off until 2038. Is that right?
That's right.
So we have 18 years to figure this out.
Well, I would like to see, in respect to the obligations of the successor agency, but I think some of our job, this is my opinion, is to accelerate as much of the other stuff that we have no control over. This we have some control over. Somebody's got to do some homework. Somebody should report back to us and let us know what's going on. And I would say, like in 6 months, come back with a list. Let's go over it, and 6 months later, let's go with the rest of the list. But we have to accelerate this thing, in my opinion.
I wasn't implying we.
No, I know.
2037.
No, I understand.
We won't be here.
I won't be for sure.
Who knows where I'm at? Anyone have other comments?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to have, my gut is I don't want to do something approval up front. I want them to come back and report on each item and tell us what's going on. And then once we have some knowledge on what's in the history and stuff, then we can take action on it.
And I liked your suggestion, Mike, about maybe the city needs to flesh out what's real and internally. I'm looking at one thing. I mean, the biggest line item says various RDA infrastructure, 21 million. I don't even know what that means. So I don't know how much of this is really, and looking back at some of these dates, you know, going back to 1957, I don't know how much of this is really something to take any action on. And I think I like what Mike's suggestion was, is having the city just kind of flesh out some of these items to see if there's really anything that we need to take action on.
Well, when are they coming back? When's Oxnard coming back again?
April, right? Are you prepared to come back in April with a little further, talk to your finance department and discuss how these items can be evaluated and determined if they need to be continued and transferred or just,
Fully depreciated?
yeah, relieved?
Sure.
Fair enough? Great.
I guess, I mean, to me too, I want to verify that funds were actually spent on these from the assessor agency, well, RDA in the past. And if they were they, you know, that's an internal thing, but we can't go back and change that. But, you know, there should be some record, like we've mentioned, on some of this stuff, so.
Again, these are book values, am I correct?
Right.
It's not actual cash sitting in Oxnard for these things, correct?
Right.
Okay. Because the money, I'm assuming the money was already spent, there's an asset, physical asset, and it's being depreciated. So I think what you're saying is, you know, certainly have part of the review, see what the asset was, and identify it. But let's come. I move that they come back in April with the other full.
They can come back with, I would say, a subset of whatever they want to, whatever information you have on X number of them in April, so that we can, you know, you have more detailed information.
Yeah,
On
get
each
some,
line item.
do some homework.
Take action.
We support what you're doing. We're just not there yet. We're a little more work to do.
Okay.
I understand where you're at doing this.
Yeah, I love yeah, I agree. I appreciate you trying to deal with it, but we also want to see what you're doing as well.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Formalize and vote on the motion.
So I'll make a motion that they return in April with a report back on the dissolution of, or the verification of these assets.
I'll second.
So that was 13. Next is Port Hueneme for number 14.
Morning, everyone. I'm Ken McDonald, the Finance Director, and Dominique Clark, our consultant here, and can answer any questions. And
we do have a presentation that we submitted, so maybe that can be loaded. But while it's loading, just to give you an overview of the ROPS, we're just requesting 5 line items, funding for 5 line items. The majority of it is bonds and fees related to bonds. And then the second line item is a housing fund loan repayment. And then we also have our administrative allowance. And then we also have line item number 32, which is for our fiscal agent fees for the bonds. We had requested $2,500 in the 18-19 period, but we actually needed $2,600. So we're just requesting $100 to cover the difference. And that's pretty much everything. But we can answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, anyone?
I move for approval.
I'll second.
thanks.
Thanks. I do want to say I still want to encourage all the cities to continue to look at their admin budgets moving in the future as we proceed on this endeavor. in general. Thanks.
Was Port Miami scheduled to come back?
Oh, yeah, may I ask, you guys still come back for April? Because I remember there was a discussion on, with the Port District was here last time you reported on your property.
Oh, for some property disposition stuff?
That was
Yeah, the
April
council's
report
been working on that. I think they're trying to move fast, so
Okay.
I'm hoping to have some kind of news by then.
That'd be great. If not, let us know. I mean, we'd like to hear about it when if it's May, it's fine, or whenever our next meeting would be.
Yeah, we're just trying to get cleared up on those properties.
Yeah, I think there's some discussion about trying to expedite that. So I know the information I've been getting is it's going to move ahead. And I'm not directly involved, thankfully, but it is moving.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Properties, they're all scheduled to come back in April.
Oh, all of them are? I thought it was just the 3 that
Well,
reported.
there's 4. There's
4. All 4 of them?
All 4 of them will.
Thank you.
Yep. Like that.
City of Ventura.
I'm short. Good morning, Board, Vice Chair. I'm Dory Boyer, Management Analyst for the City of Ventura Community Development Department. We do have one correction. The attachment, the ROPS actual document that was submitted as an attachment to the resolution in your board packet had the incorrect amount. I actually have $12,000 of bond interest that we're going to be using, so we're actually requesting less RPTTF in the ROPS. The admin report, or the board letter is correct. It was just when I did the actual new form for the Department of Finance, the bond interest didn't calculate in there and reduce the amount. So we actually have a reduced RPTTF request. And I do have a PowerPoint. So what I do is I always want to give you the bottom line of how much money may be coming to the taxing entities based upon our estimates. Based upon what we've been getting in the recent past in proceeds is $5.2 million. The county administrative fees have been working out to about $104,000. The estimated pass-throughs that we have to pay is $1.144. So what we're requesting for the ROPS, the line items equal $1.9 million. Our bond interest funds that we can apply toward our bond payments is $12,000. So we're only going to be requesting $1.898. And that leaves approximately a little over $2 million that will be dispersed to our tax entities as residuals. So, is this the right one? The big one? That's fine. It's that last one anyway. So this is how our request is broken down. It's just two bonds, our 2003 and our 2008. And again, our 2008 bond doesn't pay out until 2038. We have arbitrage fees and bond debt administrative fees, which equal about $8,000. We have a CRAF payment, and CRAF is Supplemental Education Revenue Augmentation Fund. It's a $1.3 million loan that we pay back to the Successor Housing Agency, and it's based upon a calculation of how much we had left in residuals versus our base year of 2012. So for this year, it's $521,000 we're repaying. It leaves us about a little over $50,000 for the following year that we'll have to repay before the whole debt's paid off. And the administrative cost allowance is what we came to the board with and got approval with. Usually we were asking for the minimum of $250,000. We have reduced it to $151,000. That does include a legal cost in order to decide whether or not we're going to pursue one of the line items that DOF has denied, which is our public art loan. And that'll be happening. Still has to go to our closed session to decide whether the city's going to go for that or not. And so the total RPTTF requested, total requested for those amounts is 1.9 less the interest, so it's 1.898. Do you have any questions?
No? I do want to thank you for putting in your list from, you did it last year too, where all the funds are on all the different government agencies. That's what, I like that, to see that breakout list, how it affects all the various impacts in government agencies.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, for everybody, it doesn't hurt to have the expiration dates on there again to constantly remind us that these things are long-term, so we can kind of schedule them out in our minds.
The one thing I'd like to say is once we're down to just the bond payments, that's when we can work out and do a final and conclusive after the properties are disposed of. Unfortunately, with things like the CRAF payment, the sponsoring entity loans, those are all calculations based upon each prior year amount. So if those are approved by Department of Finance, it's going to be a little bit harder to do a final and conclusive. So that, anybody that doesn't have a sponsoring entity loan on their ROPS, it's going to be a lot easier for them to do a final and conclusive, which will make your job
True,
easier.
but maybe an estimate,
Yeah.
guesstimate.
So
We know this, I know this is fluid, so, and we're getting down to, maybe 3 years from now, we're just going to have 3 things to look at, but we have a lot of work to do between now and the next 3 years.
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get more, as more successor agencies wind down, maybe the Department of Finance will come out with a little more guidance on how to do these when they have sponsoring entity loans, so that'll be helpful.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Do we approve it?
I'll move for approval of the amended item 15.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
And final? Oh, my goodness.
Well, first item is 2020, and then last and final, but good morning, board members. I'm Steve Masura with Cosmo Companies as contract staff for the DLA administration. So we're recommending approval for the 2021 ROPS. It's very similar to last year's, but there's a reduction in the admin because they made significant progress in winding down. They've sold all their properties and transferred all their properties, so that is no longer a cost. So that went from on the ROPS, it went from $98,000 last year to $31,500 this year to basically cover some administration, legal costs, and some accounting costs. And so we're recommending approval on that unless you have any questions. And then since things are significantly wound down, the next item is for the last and final, which we're also requesting approval for, which will basically, with the bond, there's some bond debt obligation that will be paid off by 2025 unless there's a major crash in the economy, it should be paid off by 2025. That's it.
Anyone? All right, let's vote.
Do we have to make a,
Yeah, motion, please.
I'm making a motion to adopt agenda item 16.
I'll second.
Item 17. Two. So for last and final, that's this county and Santa Paula, the only two right now? Is that correct, Robert? Staff?
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi, thank you. I'll make a motion, item 17, if it hasn't been made yet.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Nice.
Congratulations, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Members of the board, Brian Gabler, still interim city manager, City of Simi Valley. The ROPS before you today is consistent with our prior years with 2 changes. One is we're actually taking one item off the ROPS. There's a housing project that is transferred ownership, and the project is moving forward with density bonuses but without any affordable housing contribution. So that can be removed from the ROPS. And the administrative cost, item number 21, is consistent with what this board approved on October 23rd. More than happy to answer any questions.
No questions? I get a motion?
I move to approve agenda item 18.
I'll second.
All right, City of Thousand Oaks.
Good morning, board members. Jamie Boscarino, Finance Director for the City of Thousand Oaks. We're here presenting our fiscal year 2021 ROPS, and the admin budget was previously conditionally approved by this board back in October. And additionally, on the ROPS, we have payments for our bonds. If you have any questions.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 19.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Well, this is no fun if we're not talking about admin budgets. This is a really boring meeting, I gotta say. You guys are just,
It kind of looks like we did our homework.
yeah.
Your button?
So that concludes our meeting today. Our next meeting is in April, correct?
Well, you know, we do have a scheduled meeting in February, but it's only if there's business to be done.
Okay, so that's on hold, but
Yeah,
likely
but
not.
the one for sure is in April, where we'll have the successor agencies with properties to dispose of come up.
Can I request if you could reach out to those cities? I heard from Port Hueneme for one. I'd like to see them all at once.
Yes.
And if one's going to be a month late, maybe we can I don't know. I don't want to push it either too far. But do you have any comments about that? Or? So April it is. Robert, you can watch from home at the same time and get your popcorn.
Do we have the date in April, or? I don't have it on my calendar.
April 22nd.
April 22nd, thank you.
And so the plan is to, so every 6 months, we would have kind of an update as to where they are on the property dispositions. So we'd have April and then October.
And in October, maybe we can also be bringing the proposed ROP budgets as well. So in January,
Yeah.
we're not hit by surprise.
Yeah.
Right. We had scheduled, well, potentially September to be that.
Oh,
that
do we?
date.
Okay, then September's fine.
That would give us some time to, if they need to come back. And then in July, we have the election of the chair and vice chair.
Any other comments, anyone?
Exciting.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.